Welcome to SVGTv News for Friday, January 5th, 2024. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has expressed sadness over the death of the 4 persons who lost their lives in Thursday's plane crash off Bequia. A small one-engine aircraft with registration number N4023B, owned and piloted by Robert Sash of Bequia, crashed into the sea 1 nautical mile west of Piti Nevis sometime after midday on Thursday. The 3 passengers on board were identified as Christian Klespa, a 51-year-old movie star from the USA, and his 2 daughters, 10-year-old Medida and 12-year-old Annie Klespa. The pilot of the ill-fated aircraft, Robert Sash, was also killed in the incident. In a telephone interview with SVGTv News, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves expressed condolences to the family and friends of the deceased pilot and passengers.
We now do it yet again to express sincerest condolences to the family and friends of the deceased persons. I do so on behalf of my family and that of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and especially the persons in Bequia who got to know them. Last evening and this morning, resonating in my head, and I've been saying it aloud, words from the poem by John Donne, For Whom the Bell Tolls. No man is an island entirely of itself. Each is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Each man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore, send not to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. God bless all of us.
Prime Minister Gonsalves said he made attempts on Thursday to speak to the widow of the deceased pilot. However, he was unable to.
Klespas arrived in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They arrived in Bequia on the 26th of December. They were on vacation, and I've been advised that they stayed at Plantation House, where they were quite loved by the staff, well taken care of, and I understand they were beautiful people, and the children and the father interacted so well with the staff and those in Bequia who knew them and who got to know them. I have made attempts to speak to the widow of the deceased Robert Sachs, SACHS. I've been unable to get her, but on 2 occasions, last evening and this morning, I left messages on her phone. I left on the voicemail, and I spoke to 2 persons who got to know the Klespas. In the case, one of them, close friend of the Mr. Klespa. I have been seeking to get the name of the mother and the telephone number of the children. Those names have not yet. The number has not yet been given to me. I want to thank Mr. Carlos Williams, the Deputy Director of Grenadines Affairs stationed in Bequia, for providing me with the telephone number of Mrs. Sachs, and also a friend of the Klespa family. I've expressed my condolences through them, and of course on the phone, the voicemail to Mrs. Sachs.
The Prime Minister thanked the divers and people of Bequia for their assistance provided to the SVG Coast Guard in retrieving the bodies from the plane wreckage.
The Coast Guard vessels were dispatched to conduct search and rescue operations. Upon arrival at the crash site, the divers from Bequia were already conducting searches for the aircraft and passengers. I want to thank the divers from Bequia, the people of Bequia generally, for all their assistance and initiative, their help to the Coast Guard personnel. At 35 minutes after midday, 25 to 1, the aircraft was located at 400 yards north of Ile de Quatre, and 4 bodies were seen in the aircraft, motionless. The local divers from Bequia and the Coast Guard effected retrieval operations. I've been advised that the first body was retrieved at minutes to 1, and the last body just after 1 o'clock. Dr. Yaniri Lugo, who was transported to the scene of the crash, pronounced the bodies dead. They responded magnificently. I mean, this happened there. It happened 9 years ago at Rock Gutter, when the Coast Guard got there from Caliacua up to Rock Gutter between Oya and Fancy. There are people in the area who already diving.
So it is something which the community spirit is very much alive and comes out, particularly on occasions of emergency. We have seen that. We have seen that over the last of rare time. We have seen that over COVID. It's always a remarkable thing. It's a genius of our people. There's this outpouring of love and solidarity.
And the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority is currently investigating Thursday's plane crash. On radio today, Prime Minister Gonzalez said he also received reports from local authorities on the accident.
That the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority has commenced an investigation into the matter. I've received reports from the Commissioner of Police because he's the head of the Coast Guard, an authority ranking, and the Coast Guard reported through him to me. Received reports from our own local civil aviation authorities and from the immigration authorities. I've spoken to the Minister of Civil Aviation. Indeed, he's in Jamaica on government business. And we spoke about the matter.
Minister with responsibilities for Grenadines Affairs and Local Government, Binava Brown, has also expressed condolences to the families and friends of the 4 people who died in the plane crash. In a statement, Minister Brown said the shock waves of the incident have affected the island of Bequia, the wider Vincentian community, and the globe. She said our prayers are indeed with those who are affected by this tragic incident. The minister also thanked the fishing community of Paget Farm, divers and boaters who, without hesitation, rushed to the site to assist, noting that their heroic efforts are truly commendable. She also thanked the SVG Coast Guard, the RSVG Police Force, and other agencies, including the air traffic control staff who participated in the recovery efforts yesterday. And the RSVG Police Force today retracted parts of its statement issued yesterday on the plane crashed in Bequia. In an updated statement, the RSVG Police Force gave full credit to the fishermen and divers of Bequia who recovered the bodies of the 4 persons from the plane wreckage. The new statement reads, the RSVG Police Force acknowledges that there was an error in the release where it stated that the 4 bodies were recovered from the aircraft sea by Coast Guard personnel. The RSVG Police Force wishes to give full credit to the valiant efforts of the fishermen and divers from the Bequia community who collaborated with the SVG Coast Guard in the retrieval operation. The bodies were recovered from the wreckage by the divers and handed over to the Coast Guard at the scene. The RSVG Police Force and the SVG Coast Guard Service value the partnership and collaboration of members of the public in the execution of their duties. The selfless and brave act of the fishermen and divers is very much appreciated and supported 100% by the authorities. And 51-year-old Hollywood actor Christian Oliver Klepser and his 2 daughters were among the 4 who died tragically in Thursday's plane crash. Klepser, who went by the stage name Christian Oliver, appeared in major movies such as Speed Racer, Saved by the Bell, and Valkyrie. His most recent credit, the latest Indiana Jones movie, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Oliver had just wrapped his latest movie, Forever Hold Your Peace, co-starring Bai Ling and directed by Nick Lyon. Filming his final scene on December 20th. Lyon posted a photo on the final day of the film and paid tribute to Oliver with the caption, "We talked about producing a film together for years and finally did it. Thank you for being a great colleague, actor and friend." With over 60 credits on IMDb to his name, Klepser was a native of Germany who had been working in the US for 30 years. May his soul rest in peace. In other local news now, we head at the issue of pensioners and their increases is a sore point for trade unions, which have submitted a number of recommendations to be considered as part of the pension reform exercise, which is expected to take place this year. Elaborating on the recommendations at a news conference yesterday, President of the Public Service Union, Errol Boucher, noted that the last increase for pensioners was in 2014 and another increase is long overdue, noting that due to high cost of food and services, pensioners' spending power has been severely affected.
In 2014, the pensioners who received their pension in 2010 got a 1.5%. Those whose pension was awarded in 2009 got a 3%, and those whose pension were awarded in 2008 and before got a 4.5%. So that's in 2014. So we are basically saying the pensioners whose pensions were awarded in 2011 and onwards, that is up to we're now in 2024, has not seen an increase in their pension. That's over a 12-year period. That's from 2012 to the end of 2023. And the pensioners who receive an increase in 2014, they have not seen an increase in a 9-year period. And our rationale for the increases that we are proposing is that over those period, over the 12-year period, we had accumulated inflation rate of 22.18%. So imagine those pensioners, what they get from NIS can literally be reduced. It is actually being reduced by 22.18% because of inflation. So the purchasing power is severely impacted. So while government workers have been getting increases, the NIS pensioners have not been getting any. While the private sector may have added an increase to its workers because of the impact of inflation, the NIS pensioners have not been getting any, right? The accumulated inflation over the period of 2015 to 2023, that's a 9-year period, is 19.77%. So those inflation rates, those have a negative impact on the ability of pensioners to maintain themselves, and mainly those pensioners who only depend on the NIS pensions.
Boucher said they are also recommending the following.
Those who were awarded pensions in January of 2011 to December 2013 should be given a 10% increase on their pensions, and those from January 2014 after, which is up to the end of 2023, now 2024, should be given a modest 5% increase. Of course, those percentage that we are requesting do not match the inflations that have taken place over that period. So they will still be behind. But nevertheless, we think it will assist them in meeting their needs. One of the things that was mentioned by the actuary is the administrative costs incurred by the NIS. And they were basically saying if you cut those costs, then it will actually mean more money for the reserves. So we agreed that the administrative costs that is being incurred by the NIS should be kept between 10 and 14% instead of the 17% that it is currently, at the time of this study, it is currently at. Reduce cost, and you will see from the form that there's a list of all of these administrative costs that we are speaking to. We recommend that the donations that are being made by the NIS, which in 2020 amounted to 1.3 million, that those donations be severely reduced, if not eliminated, because the fund itself is in trouble, and when the fund is in trouble, the contributors are the ones who feel the pain. There is no need to make all of those donations when we are going to ask for an increased contribution from workers.
In July last year, Minister of Finance Camilo Gonzalez told Parliament that reform to the pension and benefit structure of the National Insurance Services, the NIS, is urgently needed. A briefing lawmakers on the findings of the 11th Actuarial Review of the National Insurance Services, the NIS, an independent analysis of the actuarial review conducted by the World Bank's Reserve Advisory and Management Partnership, RAMT. The Finance Minister told Parliament that according to the report, the NIS reserves are projected to be depleted by 2034 if reform is not undertaken, and as such the intention of the government is to implement NIS and pension reform beginning in budget year 2024. These changes, he said, will allow the Social Security Agency to be able to continue providing its essential services to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, thereby avoiding last-minute draconian changes or fiscally imprudent government interventions. And on the weather condition now, we hear that the SVG Met Services says in its 72 hours outlook that fair conditions are expected across St. Vincent and the Grenadines today, with mostly clear skies during the night. It says the atmosphere is forecast to be predominantly dry during the next few days across SVG. However, low-level moisture can become elevated at times, resulting in scattered showers over the weekend into Monday. Winds are expected to blow from the east-northeast to east at 20 kilometers per hour to 35 kilometers per hour, allowing for breezy conditions. Seas are forecast to be slight to moderate in open waters, with swells peaking at 1.2 meters on the western coast and 1.5 meters to 2.0 meters on the eastern coast. Seas on the eastern coast may become agitated at times due to increased wind speeds. No significant haze intrusion is forecast. Here at Budget Day here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is set for Monday, January 8th, 2024. In the preparation of the presentation, the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force is notifying the general public that a parade to mark the occasion of the official opening of the 4th session of the 11th Parliament will be held on Monday at the temporary Parliament building in Caliqua in the afternoon. The parade will be under the command of Superintendent of Police Junior Simmons. Assistant Superintendent of Police Tekla Andrews Thomas will be the parade adjutant. The Guard of Honor will include non-commissioned officers and men from the RSVG Police Force and the SVG Coast Guard Service. Acting Commissioner of Police Enville Williams is expected to arrive on parade at 3:45 p.m. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonzalez at 3:50 p.m., at which time he will receive a general salute. Her Excellency, the Governor General Dame Susan Duggan, is expected to arrive at 4:08 p.m. and will receive a royal salute. Following the parade, Her Excellency, the Governor General, will deliver the speech from the throne. This will be followed by the budget speech to be delivered by Minister of Finance and Economic Planning and Information Technology, Camilo Gonzalez. Chief Health Promotion Officer in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment, Shanika John, said the new year tends to bring a sense of turning a new page, and while making resolutions to improve general health for 2024, persons must be generous and honest in making small and achievable goals. John was a guest on NBC Radio Face-to-Face program today discussing planning in a healthy way for the new year.
Resolution or the healthy habit that they would want to be able to do. So for this particular instance, we try to be as generous with yourself and be honest with yourself and try to make it as small and as achievable as possible. So even for us in health promotion, there are a lot of things that we would tap into for us to try to understand the target group that we're working with. So for this particular instance where people are trying to make all of the changes and all of these different maneuvering into their new habits, we're asking you to be honest with yourself. So first thing we want persons to do is to identify what unhealthy habit do you want to really tackle. I mean, I have friends and colleagues who say, for the new year, I'm going to drink more water. And I would ask them, what does that mean? Does that mean that you are going to get a water bottle? You're going to aim to drink at least 2 liters a day? What do you drink now? And you try to break it down and dissect it in a way that it becomes very achievable, but it's not very general and it's too wide that you become very overwhelmed, and so you decide you're not going to bother with it anymore.
John further explained that while change takes time, there are a number of models that assist in healthy habits, such as the 5-stage chance theoretical model, starting with the pre-contemplation stage, in which people fail to recognize the consequences of the actions that they are involved in.
You may have a sense of idea, okay, yeah, they say drinking alcohol is not good for me, but nothing happening to me really. So they are in a pre-contemplation stage, and they have no interest in making any changes anytime soon. Sometimes the individual will then move to what we call a contemplation stage. And in this stage, they acknowledge that there is a problem, that something is affecting them, but they're not quite ready to move on to taking any action. And sometimes they even lack the confidence, or what we call self-efficacy, which is that internal willpower to make the decision. And so that in itself also comes from other factors around them. I mean, if you're the only one who wants to stop drinking alcohol, but all of your friends continue to drink alcohol, there's still alcohol in your home, all of that would kind of, put a damper on your confidence level, because your environment does not support the type of behavior that you want. Then we move to what we call the preparation stage, which is where persons tend to get ready. Eventually, I got to what we call an action stage, which is where I just started. And so this is where we want people to actually try to move to where you could actually start. Start to eliminate the bad habits and start to introduce the new habits that you want in very small ways, in very small, simple, manageable ways.
The Chief Health Promotions Officer said it is important to note during the process of setting new goals, there can also be occurrence of relapse into old habits, as she outlined several tips to maintain proper health this year.
For us in the ministry, and what I'm going to try to do for the next 2 weeks or so, Calvin, I'm going to try to see if we could have one of our technical persons from within the ministry to come to focus on some basic screening that men and women should start with. Okay. And then we're going to zoom in a little bit on what women's health and then men's health, so that people could get a better understanding of where can I start. So if you have not started or you don't know where to start, the best thing for you to do is try to figure out, is there an unhealthy habit that you have right now that you would like to change? If the answer is yes, try to identify what that is, and then try to see how you could make small adjustments to being better and overall improving your health outcomes. I mean, and this could go to as basic as you want to make sure that you take your medication as prescribed by your physician to control your particular disease or condition that you may be experiencing. And I'm talking about my diabetics, my hypertensive, those persons who know that for Christmas you decided to ignore your treatment protocol to enjoy the season, so to speak. And so now you may have elevated or your readings may be out of range. It's time to get back on track.
And local health psychologist Dr. Joselle Miller said you can set goals regardless if you may not have the necessary skill set. According to Dr. Miller, who was a guest on NBC Radio Face-to-Face program recently, a person's attitude determines how far he or she progresses, and in order to achieve set goals, one must be mentally prepared.
Your attitude really determines how far you go. And one of the things I will hasten to tell persons is we cannot no more sit back and think that everything happens to us. We also are part and parcel in what happens in our lives. So there's a level of ownership and responsibility that we all have to approach this new year with. We can't be thinking that things are just going to be handed to us, which is a mindset of entitlement. Rather, we can expect things, we expect high things, yes, but we have to position ourselves mentally, physically, and otherwise to achieve those things that we expect to come to us.
Dr. Miller emphasized that although it is never too late to consider a course of correction at any stage in life, occasionally people may feel bound to a particular path, but it is never too late to start over.
You realize that you now have less time to do so. Is it too late to make a course correction at any point?
Never too late, never too late. And that's a good question there, because sometimes persons feel strapped into a particular direction all the time, even when it's not working out. And we have to be constantly reevaluating every single decisions that we're making, because our choices determine basically the output or the end result of our lives. And we have to be honest enough to say that, okay, I initially thought this was a good idea or this was a good direction, and now based on certain new developments I'm realizing it is not. Never think it's too late to start over, and you may not have to start over from scratch per se. You're starting over from a point of experience where you can just simply reevaluate, direct, meaning that you just simply shift things around and you allow yourself to walk in something that even sometimes you did not envision for yourself. And it's about flexibility, it's about openness of mind. And one of the things that I want to tell persons as well, even as you're making your plans for this year, try to set it out not only in a realistic way, but use positive language. Now, there have been research in mindfulness that shows that the way in which you present a goal will determine if you achieve it or not. So when persons write goals from a negative standpoint, most times than not, it is not achieved.